We're so glad you're here and you're taking a proactive approach to your health. For this workout, you'll need a bath towel and a hand towel and also a pen for the exercises coming up. Let's begin our full body fundamental workout. To begin, I just want you to be standing up nice and tall. We're gonna go into what's called a tension hold. So you're gonna stand up through the top of your head, nice and tall, and then you're gonna start to turn on and activate your quads. So those front muscles right here, start to tighten them up. Then you're gonna start to squeeze the back side of the legs, those hamstrings, and then I want you to squeeze your cheeks, those glutes. So that whole lower body is turned on. Now your core is gonna turn on, your abs. So you're gonna tighten up those abs. They're strong, but they're not sucked in. They're strong and your belly button pulls back. Now you're gonna make sure those shoulders are down and back, just away from those ears, and you're still lengthening through the top of your head. So this is your tension hold. This is turning on as many muscle groups as you can just while you're standing there. So keep in mind that this is how we want to be able to move through our exercises, turning on your muscles, being very active of how they're turned on, and then we'll start to move. We'll add that movement in. So the very first thing we're gonna do is a pelvic tuck. You're gonna place the hands on your hips, and a pelvic tuck, you're gonna squeeze your cheeks and tuck them under. So it shortens the front of the abs, those cheeks squeeze, they tuck under, and then you're gonna release. So we're gonna do a couple of those. So I just wanna be able to show you what it's like to move through your pelvic tuck, in and out. And so this is gonna be a very big exercise that we end up referring to along the way in a lot of the exercises to come. So I want you to feel what that's really like. It's activating your glutes. Those are such important muscles, those cheeks. They need to play into it. It supports your back and it turns on your abdominals. So now we're gonna take this a little bit further. We're gonna go up to a wall. So find a clear wall. And what we're gonna do here is pelvic tuck into the wall. So those feet will need to be far enough away from the wall so that you can actually wedge that low back into the wall. And then I want you to squeeze the cheeks and tuck under as much as you can. So you're really pressing your low back into the wall, really nuzzling it into that wall. And then I want you to release. So then we're gonna go into not only just a pelvic tuck, but what we call a neutral spine. So a neutral spine is where you have a little gap between your low back and the wall. And you might be able to stick your hand back there to kind of be able to place that, to see just how much space you're creating. We don't want a giant gap. We just want enough room for that hand to be able to stick behind that low back. Then you're gonna pelvic tuck and push into that hand. So you're really gonna be squeezing and pressing with those abdominals, with your cheeks, and you're just kind of moving in and out of that pelvic tuck. So just keep practicing here. It should really feel like you're able to find that neutral spine and that pelvic tuck quite easily, just moving in and out of the two. Make sure you're breathing here. Make sure your foot placement's correct too. If you're having a really hard time getting that low back into the wall, maybe those feet are a little too close. Looking good. Okay, let's rest there. Just kind of shake it out. So come away from the wall, kind of shake it out because that was some hard work there. We're gonna be adding on though. So now what we're gonna go back into is our pelvic tuck where we're gonna maintain that pelvic tuck against the wall. So we're gonna smash that low back into the wall. Your cheeks are turned on, your abs are turned on. Now we're gonna open up the chest by bringing those arms up, kind of like a goalie post. So what you're gonna be trying to do here is keep the head, elbows, hands, and low back attached to the wall. So this really opens up the front of the body, but the hard part is keeping your pelvic tuck. So I need you to be able to now build that endurance, that squeeze, that tuck, that whole time, while you're also feeling your upper body. We wanna make sure your shoulders stay low. So just kind of feel what this is like. It's really opening up your body and your posture muscles while we still have your core turned on here in your pelvic tuck. If your hands can't touch the wall, that's perfectly fine. I'd rather that those are lifted away from the wall than your low back lifted away from the wall. Now, if this is a little easy and you want to advance, you can start to slide those hands up and down. Just gently. They're not gonna lift very high, especially if you're not able to keep your pelvic tuck on the wall. And that's what we're kind of learning here, is how to be able to move and still maintain this pelvic tuck, because this is such an important part to our exercises to come. I want you just to feel how much work that can really be when we also add movement to this exercise. So if this is moving on too quickly, just focus on that pelvic tuck and that opening of your posture muscles. You look great. 2, 1, rest. All right, let's shake it out. We're still gonna stay close to the wall just in case you need it, because we're gonna move into balance work now. So right now, we're just gonna focus on one foot at a time. So I need you to kind of push that foot into the floor, gripping with your foot, and then we'll lift one leg. And we're just gonna hold here. So this is about a 30-second hold. Feel free to use a wall or a piece of furniture if you need to, but I want you to remember now that tension hold that we did in the very beginning. You're gonna turn on the front of the leg, the back of the leg, the cheeks, the abs. So you're really creating that strength, and you are pulling those toes into the floor to really anchor into the ground as well. Find a focal point, stare at that focal point, that helps so much, and keep breathing, lengthening through the top of your head. 2, 1, now we're gonna switch out the legs, balancing with the other foot, so remember, really gripping into the ground. Ready, begin. So creating that tension hold, you have your entire body turned on. This is gonna help you create strength and stability while we're practicing this balance. This is also really helping the brain. The brain has to be able to turn on this particular activity, this skill, to really start to get better and better at it. So don't get frustrated, because this will get better as you practice it. 3, 2, 1, and rest. Now what we're gonna do, I want you to get your pen. We're gonna place it on the floor in front of you. Again, you can keep holding onto the wall just in case you need that little extra stability there. And what we're gonna do is exercise your feet. So we're gonna be trying to pick up the pen with one foot. Ready? Begin. So this is no easy task. You may not actually be able to pick up this pen, but what you're doing is exercising the little muscles in your feet. If your feet are cramping, this is kind of letting you know that they're a little bit out of shape. They needed this exercise. So just keep doing what you can. This is also some brain activity, kind of making you think, how can I really pick up this pen? What way can I move my foot to really get this pen off the ground? 2, 1, we're switching sides. So again, just working that foot, trying to grip with your toes. Gripping with your toes, gripping with the arch of your foot. We're strengthening that foot. We're helping to prevent collapsed arches. And the stronger your feet, the stronger your ankles, your knees, and your hips. It really does strengthen from the bottom up. So just keep doing what you can. If you're able to pick up that pen, great, drop it and start again. So that way we're getting this exercise in for the full 30 seconds. In 3, 2, 1, and rest. Good work. Okay, now we're gonna be moving into our hip hinge. This is all about back health, back safety. So we're gonna place the hands on the front of your legs here, and I want you just to think of pushing your hips back and lengthening through the front of your head. Ready? Begin. You're gonna hinge back. So you'll find this length here. She looks fantastic, flat back. And then when you stand up, you wanna start to flex your cheeks. And then that slight pelvic tuck that we've been practicing. And again, so just kind of repeating your hinge, that lengthening through your back. You'll feel a stretch in the back of your legs. And you'll also feel a stretch in the cheeks. So let them lengthen. Let them lengthen out to the back. Keep your chest open. Then start to contract and squeeze and tuck at the top. So it's a stretch and contraction for these cheeks, which is such a good thing to do, really training them to be able to stretch and contract, finding that pelvic tuck, because this is something we'll be using a lot in exercises to come. The chest is staying open, those shoulders are staying down, those hands are just sliding down the legs in front. So we also want to make sure your abs are supporting your spine as you're moving. 2, 1, rest. All right, we're going into what's called a timeout squat. So what you're gonna be doing here is watch us first while we set up. You're gonna be facing the wall. You're gonna be just far enough away from the wall that you end up not ever touching the wall, but you're pretty darn close. Let's take those arms up like a goalie post, and you're gonna be sitting the hips back. So we just hinged, now we're squatting. We're gonna lower down and right back up. Good, so join us. So what we're doing is squatting, pushing those hips back and bending the knees. We wanna make sure your knees do not pass over your toes. That's kind of why we're here at the wall. Now, if you're finding that you're pretty far from the wall, you're not even close to touching it, I want you to take a step in. And that is gonna make it even more challenging for you to make sure that you're upright in your posture. You're keeping those knees back so they're healthy, they're not passing over your toes, but it's forcing you to kind of push your hips back while still keeping your chest up. This is a lot of work. You don't need to go super low. It's just more about kind of forcing you into the correct positioning for a very safe squat. It also turns on your back. So if you're feeling your back a little bit, that's very appropriate. Make sure those shoulders stay out of your ears and you're very aware of what's happening in that lower body. You want to keep your heels down. Try not to press into your toes too much. 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. You did a fantastic job right there. Next, we're gonna be going into a kneeling position. So you may wanna end up padding your knees just in case you do need that. So using a towel or whatever you need to for that extra cushion. We're gonna start on both knees and we're gonna practice our pelvic tuck once again. So squeeze and tuck under and release. So just a couple of times here. The glutes feel a little different in this position. You're gonna feel like they don't get quite as big of a range of motion, and that's perfectly fine. We're also, while here, getting a little bit of a stretch in the front. And that is a very, very good thing. We've got to loosen up those hip flexors to also be able to make sure those glutes can activate. We sit for such long periods of time that this is a great exercise to kind of reverse that effect. 2, 1, rest there. Now we're gonna go into a half kneeling position. So you're gonna take one foot in front. We wanna make sure that the heel stays down the whole time. And now we're gonna go into what's called an active hip flexor stretch. We're gonna do 5-second holds and begin. So pelvic tuck, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release that pelvic tuck. And again, pelvic tuck, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and release the pelvic tuck. Continue on. About 5-second holds, and what you should be feeling is actually a stretch in the bottom leg right here. That's what we want to focus on by squeezing the back butt cheek. 2, 1, let's switch out those legs, same thing. Make sure that that heel is down. We're going to be going into our active hip flexor stretch, so that pelvic tuck. Ready, and begin. So very small pelvic tuck. We get the stretch right where Shelley's hand is kind of where you're gonna be feeling that stretch in that bottom leg. And it's so helpful to make sure that you're squeezing the cheek of the leg that's down to create and enhance that stretch in that hip flexor, that front of the hip, that place that we bend from the hip. That's where we're trying to stretch right now. That 5-second hold just helps to increase that stretch. 2, 1, rest. Now we're gonna switch out the legs. We're gonna go more into a rocking stretch. So again, it's very important that that heel is down. And now we're gonna start to just shift forward and back. Keep this gentle. Keep this in the range of motion that you're able to do. If you're feeling like you're a little bit shaky, make sure you can hold on to something so you can still keep your balance. We wanna make sure that the back knee is padded if you need that, so just take the time to set yourself up for that. And you're staying upright. So again, this is still a stretch for that back leg, but now we're also starting to warm up and stretch the foot and the ankle and the calf of this front leg. So it's very important that heel stays down. Let's switch out those legs. That looks really good. So take your time, switch it out, and begin. So Shelley's doing a fantastic job here. She's got her heel anchored here, and she's trying to kind of push her knee towards the toe. Not that we have to let that knee pass over your toe, but just kind of keeping that rocking, that sliding, that very smooth gliding front to back. And keeping that balance because the core is still on, being active within those leg muscles. 2, 1, rest. All right, now we're gonna go into rotation. So we're gonna just switch back to that first leg. We're gonna take the hands behind your head, And what we're gonna do is rotate in towards your front leg and then back to center. Ready, begin. So rotate and then back to center. So this is now adding your oblique muscles to the sides of your waistline, and it's gonna challenge your balance a little bit. You should feel how your core activates to create that range of motion. It is good to be upright, nice and long, so you're just kind of rotating in your axis here. You're not pulling on your head. You're not trying to rotate with your arms. You're creating rotation through your waist. 2, 1, and switch legs. That looks really good. So just switching out, get yourself set up. Remember that heel stays down. Activate your core. Ready, and begin. So just rotating in towards the leg and then back to center. We don't need to fully open up the other side. We just want to be going in towards the body, feeling how much work that can be for the core, how it's working on our balance. And also what's fantastic is it isolates your core because your hips have to stay fairly still. So you're gonna feel how that rotation can really get into that waistline. It pulls in. 3, 2, 1, and rest. Switch out those legs. Keep the padding where it needs to be. Just make sure you're not tripping over it, because now we're gonna really start to advance. From here, what we're gonna do is just start to pull that leg in and out. And that's gonna work on your balance. Okay, ready? And begin. Let's do about 3, but take your time with it. She's getting her heel on the floor every time. She's using her core to balance. All right, this time we're gonna stick it. So just kind of get that foot there. We're gonna curl the back toe under, and we're gonna stand up. Ready? And here we go. Standing up, place those feet together, and then you're gonna kneel right back down and lower yourself back down. All right, so our timer is on. I want you to see how many you can do in the time that we have. So what you might need is some assistance. Holding on to furniture is perfectly fine. Trying to maybe just only use your hands to press off your knee. And what Shelley's actually doing is trying to not use any hands at all. And that's where I'd like you to be able to work up to, because we need this strength. We need to know how to get up and down from the floor. And if anything were to ever happen, let's say we can't use one of our arms, we are building the strength to make sure that you are mobile. So just do what you can here. This one can be very new, very frustrating, but I want you to know that this is absolutely important to have this skill. So make yourself use it. Make yourself do this. Do the best that you can. You have 5 more seconds, and then we're gonna switch sides. Fantastic work. Okay, so now we're gonna do all of that to the other side. So first, we're just gonna practice pulling that leg front to back. Ready, begin. So do about 3, kind of warming yourself up, getting that balance activated. Looking great. Okay, so now we're gonna start our stand-ups. Ready, begin. So the key is to be able to curl under the back toes. Those are gonna leverage you up. I want you to keep in mind that one side is always stronger than the other side. That's perfectly normal. But it's also discouraging sometimes that one side's not working quite as well. It's not as strong, but you need to be able to work on that side just as much. It's almost even more important to work on that side to try to bring up that level of strength, because if we're really imbalanced, that can also cause falls. So we're working against that right now. Just do what you can. If you never even get up off the floor, but you're trying like heck to do that, you are strengthening yourself right now. You are improving your body. You are helping yourself get through this skill. This is such an important skill. And it's fantastic that you are trying. So just do your best. Keep it safe. If this is really painful, that is the only time that I want you to really cool it on this one. And this is our last one here. And you did such a great job. Nice job. Your heart rate is up, which is a good thing. All right, so let's take a seat, and I'm gonna explain what's coming next while you catch your breath. Okay, so next we're gonna be going into what I call packed shoulders. So that means that those shoulders are down and away from your ears. You're keeping an open chest, and you're slightly pulling your shoulder blades together. So now what we're gonna do is place the hands kind of by your hips with the fingertips flared open, and let's bend those knees. So those knees can just be slightly bent, whatever ends up being comfortable, and we're gonna be actively pressing the hands down into the floor. Okay, ready? And begin. And we're not even gonna lift. Shelley kind of lifted here, that's very advanced. I don't even want you to go there yet. I want you just to actively press those hands, almost like you could be hovering off the ground, but you don't need to go there yet. I just want you to feel what that's like, to be able to press those shoulders down, away from your ears. Those hands want to press down into the ground. You're squeezing the shoulder blades together. This is all activated through here in that upper back. Your arms, your chest is open. You're almost there, 2, 1, and rest there. Great job. Okay, now we're gonna do a little bit of a wrist stretch. So from here, we're just gonna assist one hand and pull those fingertips up. So just sit as comfortably as you can. We're gonna do about a 15-second hold here. Just keeping that arm as straight as you can of the wrist that we're stretching. That should feel really nice. And then we're gonna come down. So then the fingertips come down, and that other hand is just kind of assisting with that. And so we're just getting that full flexion and extension through our wrists, because we're about to go down onto your hands and knees. And so just remember that additional padding is perfectly fine. Okay, let's switch arms. So we've got that up, arm is straight. Doing what you can here. This should feel really good. And a little bit of a breather here. We've been working hard, you're doing really great. Okay, let's flex down with that assistance. And again, just a reminder, if you need some extra cushioning underneath your hands, feel free to use your towel. Coming up. And 2, 1, and rest. Okay, we're gonna go onto your hands and knees. Our setup here is we want those hands directly underneath your shoulders and your knees directly underneath your hips. We're gonna practice that pelvic tuck. So we're just gonna focus on just this lower half here. Kind of forget about this upper body. Try to keep it as still as possible, okay? So just tucking under the hips and then arch that tailbone up. So begin. So tuck under and release. Tuck under and release. Trying to keep this upper body as still as possible, learning to isolate this pelvic tuck here. This is not easy, so just do what you can. It might feel a little jittery. It might feel like you have to recruit more of your upper body to do this, but with practice, you will kind of find that fine tuning that it takes to be able just to get that lower half to turn on. So it's tucking under, releasing up. Okay, now we're gonna reverse it. So now let's try to keep your lower half nice and still, and we're gonna sink your chest. So let that chest sink towards the floor, and now you're gonna pull it up, pull those shoulder blades away. So this is just gonna be this upper body. So keep repeating there. Sink that chest, and then pull it up, pulling those shoulder blades open. So that's sinking and rounding. So we're getting that movement now just through that upper body. Try not to use your head too much. You're gonna feel how your abdominals play into this too, which is a very good thing. We want those to be aware and working. 2, 1. Now we're gonna move into cat-cow. So now we're gonna put everything together. So let's go ahead and kind of slump the back. In the slump back, the head and the tailbone point up. And now we're gonna round the back. So now we're gonna pull and round the upper back, pulling from that center of the back. Head and tailbone are tucked. And repeat. So now we're gonna slump, get that stretch, and then pulling up. So just move at your own range of motion here. We're gonna add the breathing. So when you're rounded up, this is your exhale. When you slump down, I want you to inhale and just take your time with this one. Get that full range of motion through your back while you're moving. This should feel really nice. 5 more seconds. Now we're gonna find our neutral spine. So that's our nice flat back. Our abs are turned on. We're gonna pick up your right arm only. So pick up your right arm by your ear. Extend it from your body. Bring it back down. Okay, now the left arm. That looks great. Now the right leg. Extend it behind you. Good. Replace it to the floor, and now the other leg. Great job, and place it back down to the floor. We're gonna do one more round like that. So right arm, and down, left arm, and down, right leg, and down, and left leg and down. So you can stay here, or we can start to go into full opposite arm and leg. Opposite arm and leg will lift and lower to the floor, and then the other side. So this is really going to challenge your balance more. Think of length rather than height for this one. Keep your core activated. Remember, we're trying to keep our neutral spine. We're not wiggling around a whole lot. We're trying to just keep this very smooth, very fluid, lengthening from the midline, and keeping your balance. Remember, if you do need to modify, just work one limb at a time. 2, 1, rest. We're gonna move into plank. Plank is gonna be on your elbows. This is all about your core. So we're gonna go first from your knees, and then we're gonna try up to your feet. But just remember, you can always come back down to your knees. So I first want you to tighten up your abs, then come up to your knees, keeping your body lengthened, and turn on your pelvic tuck. Our timer is on. So your pelvic tuck is there. You're squeezing those cheeks the best that you can. You're keeping your neutral spine, and your abs are tight. You might even be able to really flatten out your back in a very deep pelvic tuck if you're ready for that. Okay, stay here, or let's come up to the toes into our full plank. So make sure you're breathing here. This is much more advanced. Make sure you're not feeling your back here, because we have our pelvic tuck on and our abs on. It should feel supported. 2, 1, rest. Good work. Back up to your hands and knees. You're doing such a great job. Okay, on our hands and knees, now what we're gonna do is start to focus on this upper back. Let's loosen up this upper back. Let's take one hand behind your head. Now you're gonna connect elbow to elbow in the front, and then rotate, opening up to the ceiling. Begin. So this is all about upper back. Again, this lower back is nice and still. It's not moving. We're not shifting in our knees at all. But we're getting this great range of motion in our upper body. You're not cranking on your neck. You're just trying to rotate down and up to be able to loosen up that upper back. This is such a good one because we can get very stiff here and very rounded. So we're working against that. 2, 1, switching sides, get that placement right, and begin. Elbow to elbow, rotate, open. Try to use your fullest range of motion. Take your time through this. As you open up, inhale. As you connect your elbows, exhale. You might be stiffer on one side. That's perfectly fine. Just kind of take note of that. That's hopefully something we can keep improving. Keep working with to find that balance between the two sides. 2, 1, rest. We'll be moving into what's called a side plank. So here we want to set up on the elbow, and we want to create a nice straight line from your elbow, hip, and knees. And what we're gonna do here is turn on the sides of your waistline to be able to pick up your hips. This is not an easy exercise, just do what you can here. Let's demonstrate, and lift and hold. So weight is in this bottom knee. Make sure this bottom knee is down. This top leg can be straight or bent, whatever is natural for you. And we have a very strong bottom shoulder. Make sure your elbow is directly underneath your shoulder and you're pressing that elbow into the floor. You're very active that way. Now, if you're feeling a lot of pain in that shoulder, I want you to come down and try to readjust. No need to stay in pain here, because what we actually want to be working is this bottom side, the oblique, the side of the waistline. It's okay to use this hand here for support, and keep breathing. 2, 1, rest. Let's switch sides. Again, all about the core. We're working it from all of its angles. So we want to make sure we're in a nice straight line. We have a strong bottom shoulder. We're going to be pressing that arm down into the ground. Ready, and then lift those hips. Looks good. So this one now, Shelley's kind of taking her hand off the ground. Feel free to do that if you're ready for it to advance there. You could even reach those fingertips to the ceiling if you're ready for that. So this kind of allows those shoulder blades to stack. So we're thinking more about that upper body, stacking that upper body, and still keeping this bottom oblique working. This is where we're trying to target right here. You might even feel the hip a little bit, which is perfectly fine. Rest as you need to. 2, 1, rest. Good work. We're gonna come down onto your stomach. So I want you to make your head as comfortable as possible. So you can rest your forehead on your hands or on your chin on your hands, whatever's gonna be best for you. And now we are going to focus on your core. So while you're laying here on your stomach, I want you to start to brace your core. And what this means is just tightening up the core, not necessarily just trying to suck in, but actually contracting those muscles. So that is kind of comparable to when you sneeze or you're gonna get tickled, kind of that feeling of that tension that happens through the core. So I want you to do that right now, and then keep that contraction and try to pull your belly button off the ground. And so that's what I want you to kind of feel here as we're laying on your stomach, is how to recruit the core while here. Now we're gonna also recruit those cheeks, so that's also part of the core. And so what I want you to do right now is just focus on flexing one cheek at a time. So first, flexing your right cheek, then your left cheek, then both at the same time. And you're just gonna keep kind of going through that sequence, right cheek to left cheek to squeezing both cheeks together, like you're trying to pull them together. And just creating that awareness of being able to isolate one cheek from the other is such a good thing for the movement that's about to come. And even if you have to place your hands there to kind of help you get a little bit more of a sense of what's happening there is perfectly fine. Just being aware of how much work it takes, what's actually happening, can you isolate those cheeks, making sure that you're not actually recruiting something like your neck or your shoulder. So now let's add on. So what I want you to do is focus just on squeezing your right cheek, then pick up your leg and lower that leg. Good job. Now just squeeze your left cheek, then pick up the leg, then lower the leg. Now squeeze both cheeks together and pick up both legs and lower the legs. So I want you to keep going through that sequence now. And it's all about squeezing the cheek first, then lifting the leg, and then knowing how to release and go to the other side. And then activating both. Sometimes one cheek is not gonna activate quite as strong as the other one, and that's fairly natural, but I want you to really keep focusing on that side and making sure that you're getting adequate practice for that. Okay, now we get to add on. So we kind of know what it's like to be able to work this lower half. Remember, we know what our core is already doing. So now I want to show you what it's like to be able to get that whole body turned on. So we're going to start to bring those hands underneath your shoulders. And I want you to think of length again through the top of your head. So lengthening to the top of your head. You're going to be looking down at the ground the whole time to make sure that your neck stays neutral. Your abs are on, then your cheeks are on, and I want you to slightly lift those legs off the ground. And then we're gonna pick up those hands off the ground. Good, and then you're going to lower back down, release, and now let's sequence again. Abs, cheeks, and then upper body lifts. And now we've got that lift again, and lower, and release. So we're gonna keep working through that sequence. Core, cheeks, upper body, lifts, and lowers. And so this sequence is so important to know how to activate correctly so we are actually working the correct muscles. When you're at the top, working against gravity with those arms and legs lifted with your core tight, we've got every single muscle turn on this back side of the body. It's a lot of work. Make sure you're not recruiting your neck. You have a neutral neck, shoulders are down, you're just looking at the ground, but this is a lot of work. Make sure you're breathing, doing what you can, rest as you need to. 2, 1, and rest. Good job. All right, let's roll onto your back. And very first thing we're gonna do is practice our pelvic tuck here. So this is gonna be a lot like what we were doing when we were practicing our pelvic tuck on the wall in the very beginning. So you're gonna find that little bit of a gap between your low back, and then we're gonna smash into that gap with that pelvic tuck. So I just want you to kind of practice this rocking that can happen through the pelvis as you go in and out of your pelvic tuck. Good, and it's a small range of motion, but if you need to kind of know what's going on, you can always stick your hand underneath your low back, and you're still creating that tuck where we've got that flat back against the floor, and then that neutral back. It lifts a little bit, flat back to neutral back. And so this is also activating your abs. Your abs are gonna be doing a lot of work in the next exercise, so I want you to kind of just keep working on what this feels like. In 2, 1, and rest. Okay, so now we're gonna keep our pelvic tuck. We're gonna extend one leg up to the ceiling, And we're gonna do leg circles. So just try to keep that leg as long as you can. The core does not move around. We are keeping that pelvic tuck. Now let's start to create small controlled circles. And so by creating our pelvic tuck, this becomes a core exercise. This is our abs here. This is not necessarily our leg. Even though it's kind of good for our hip health, this should actually be working from your core to stabilize through your core. And then we're gonna switch direction of this leg. So stay with the same leg, just the other direction. Now, as you've done this a couple of times, you can actually start to make the circles bigger and bigger, and you'll start to realize just how much more that recruits your core so that you're not wiggling, you're not shifting side to side, and you're keeping your low back attached to the ground the whole time. 2, 1. Now let's replace those legs, kind of switch them out, keeping that leg long, pelvic tuck, keep the core active, ready, and begin those circles. Upper body is relaxed. Try not to use your neck or your shoulders. Now, every once in a while, there is a little bit of a click in that hip. As long as that's not hurting, that just kind of happens. So don't be alarmed if that happens. It's fairly normal. 2, 1, we're gonna switch direction of the circle, keeping control over your core. Keep breathing as well. We are trying to train our core to where your low back stays down on the ground the whole time, even with movement. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and rest. Okay, both feet will stay on the floor. We're gonna take the hands behind your head. We're gonna try to keep those elbows open as our reminder that we're not using our head or our neck. We're gonna go into crunches. So just release the weight of your head into your hands. Turn on your core. Low back is pressed into the ground already, so that means that your core is activated. Exhale, we're gonna crunch up, trying to kind of pull those shoulder blades off the ground, and then inhale back down. So what we're doing in this moment is using your core to be able to crunch and release, but still keep it active the entire time. So there's really no rest. Even when you're lowering your head to the floor on that inhale, you're still keeping your core activated because we need to keep your low back pressed into the floor in our active pelvic tuck. So keep breathing here. Exhale on the lift, inhale on the lower. Stay at your own pace. 2, 1, release. Good. Okay, now this one, we're gonna go into a reverse crunch. We're gonna take your legs into what's called a tabletop position. Your arms are down by your side. So tabletop just means that your knees are directly over your hips. And what we're gonna try to do here is really use your lower abs to be able to pick up those knees towards your nose. Okay, ready? And begin. So this is a very small range of motion, but we are creating a lift now through the tailbone as our reverse crunch happens through our lower abs. This is not a large lift. It's an exhale as you lift, inhale as you lower, but remember, we're trying to train those abs to stay on the entire time. So keep them active, keep them strong, and we're just trying to pull those knees towards your nose. Obviously they won't touch, but do what you can. 2, 1, and rest there. Good job. All right, now we're gonna go into what's called deer in the headlights. I'm gonna have you place your hands on your cheeks. So we're right back to kind of our awareness of the cheeks. I want you to squeeze into your left cheek only, then your right cheek, and then both. And so just kind of feeling what that's like now in this position while laying down on your back. So we'll just do a couple of those, kind of just get that feeling, because what we're gonna do is go into bridging, which is going to be all about those cheeks. So that way we're not using our low back or cramping in our hamstrings. Okay, so I want you to squeeze both your cheeks and create that pelvic tuck. We're gonna press through your heels and we're gonna bridge up and then down. And so this is, again, all about those cheeks. They both need to work at the same time. They squeeze in, they tighten to the top to 100%, then they'll start to lower you back down. The cheeks can stay activated the entire time, but they just won't be quite as strong when you're lowering back down because they're stretching and then contracting to the top. And so this is all about learning how to keep your pelvic tuck, so that way we're not just using your low back and we're not just using your hamstrings. 2, 1, and rest. Good job. All right, we are at our cool down, and I want to show you this fantastic stretch for the chest. So what I'm going to have you do is sit up and grab your small hand towel, and I'm going to show you how to fold this up. So we're going to just fold it in half for now, and then you're going to start to roll it up. And so you may only go about halfway, or you might go all the way. It really depends on how flexible or really just kind of where your comfort level is. What we're going to be doing here is laying on top where this towel is right between your shoulder blades, and I'm also going to give you a little bit of padding underneath your head. All right, so Shelley's going to lay right over it. She's going to make sure she's in the right spot. Feel free to kind of change yourself around as you need to, but what the feeling should be is this nice dropping open of your shoulders. Okay, so we're going to be holding our stretch, and this is at least 1 minute hold, because I want you to really feel how this can start to open up your chest and how you can start to do some deep breathing, diaphragm breathing. So you're kind of breathing through your entire diaphragm, not just your chest. So that means even all the way down into your tummy. And you can keep your legs however is comfortable. Some might want to bend your knees. Some will keep them straight, just like Shelley is. It just kind of depends on your back. And I also have a towel underneath Shelley's head because I want to make sure that she's not feeling like she's upside down. It's important that we still keep somewhat of a neutral neck while we're here, but the stretch should be concentrated on letting those shoulders drop open and down away from your ears. Let's actually even roll those palms up towards the ceiling a little bit. Good. And that can kind of just help to increase that stretch. And this combats our rounded shoulders. That rounded shoulder look, because we're always doing things in front of our body, and now we get to open ourselves up in the opposite direction. You can hold this stretch as long as you'd like. Keep in mind though, if it's at all causing pain, to adjust the towel. You may end up wanting more padding underneath your head, or you may want to decrease how much the towel is rolled up. Just make sure it's working for you. This should be extremely relaxing, and it should feel like you're just able to open up the front of the body. Also, to increase this stretch, instead of just folding the towel in half, you can actually fold it into thirds to kind of get that little bit more of a lift to let those shoulders drop even more. So just finding what's going to work for you. Enjoy your breathing here. And you are doing a great job at improving your body's health and longevity. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.